Hello, Millie. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in today. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thanks for having me here.
So, Millie, I hear you're quite an adventurous person. Have you got a particular adventure that you could share with me and our audience?
Yeah, I'd love to. I love traveling, and I want to share with you one of the stories back from 2007, right after graduation. Me and my husband, we wanted to take a trip to Patagonia. So we came to Buenos Aires, and from there took a flight to El Calafate, which is the gateway to Patagonia. My motivation was to really see the Pareto Moreno glaciers.
Oh, wow.
And it was incredible, and we had a great time. But the real adventure was really this side impromptu excursion we took, which was the horseback riding. And I have to tell you, I'm a very beginner rider, and we bought a tour, and the tour guides didn't speak English.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't speak Spanish. And we thought it was going to be a couple of hours. And when the tour started, we got on our horses, and there were, again, two guys.
Yeah.
And give us this, really quick how to tell the horse to go right or left, to pull the rein in, to make it stop, which is great. But 5 minutes into that, we were joined by like 6 or 7 guys on horses.
Yeah.
And they came with their hunting dogs. And
Oh, my goodness.
we was like, oh, what was going on? So ultimately, it looks like we signed up for a hunting expedition.
Oh, no.
So you can imagine.
What were you hunting for? Do you know? Did you ever find out?
Animals? Yeah, I think we did kill. I didn't, but the team did kill some rabbits. But what was really exciting is going deep into the landscape, and this was before smartphones or flip phones.
And how long was it in the end? It was
an all-day event, and by the time we were done, I was very sore.
I can imagine.
And we were invited for supper. And of course, we went to the supper, and I was a vegetarian back then.
Oh, no.
So
did they eat the rabbits?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
They did.
Okay. Well, it does sound like an adventure. You're right.
Yeah,
I'm glad I asked you this question.
And just looking back, in hindsight, I mean, I find it very uncomfortable right now. That's not something I want my kids to go do, because my parents didn't even know I was in that part of the country.
Yeah.
So it's a very unforgettable memory
Makes
for me.
for a great story. Great story. Right. Let's dive straight into AI. Can you tell me why AI matters and why it matters in the context of the Hitachi Energy portfolio?
Absolutely. AI is one of the strategic priorities for our customers. We have this long heritage of operational technology. We are the domain experts. And now you see a shift from consumer enterprise, where people, the workforce, who are used to using AI as part of their daily lives, whether it's the dating apps or having access to smart tools like ChatGPT. Yeah. So, I think there is this expectations that why can't we have AI to enable our operational workflow in our day-to-day lives? And then we've seen a tremendous opportunity in terms of bringing more efficiency, increasing productivity from some of the benchmarks that have been done in the industry. So as Hitachi Energy, we have heard from our customers. We have done some early pilots in terms of how we can augment the existing product portfolio. So we continue to help customers achieve their outcomes and still have that competitive edge against our peers and competitors in the market.
One of our main customers are utilities. Where is the conversation around AI and utilities happening? Who are the key players there?
The conversation is happening in a few places, and it's getting much more collaborative and much more reasonably nuanced as well. For example, in the US, the conversation is much more driven by the industry think tanks like EPRI. EPRI is Electric Power Research Institute, with the launch of Open Power AI Consortium, which is really bringing in your utilities, your technology providers, and academia and research groups to really understand and explore the practical applications of AI in the power systems. And Hitachi is a participant of that consortium, right? And you see a lot of sort of a peer-to-peer exchanges between the utilities, where they are sharing some of the pilots and early lessons learned. So that's all happening in US, and the focus is more on the grid reliability and grid resilience. Whereas if you look at Europe, the focus is much more around regulations and decarbonization goals, where the emphasis is much more on the governance and AI explainability and really following the guidelines of the EU AI Act. When you look at APAC, especially in countries like Japan and South Korea, the focus and the momentum is much more stronger on automation and advanced grid operations. And that's primarily driven by the dense network and the expectation for higher reliability, right? Across all the regions, the conversation has really shifted from can AI solve our problem to how can we responsibly scale AI deployment enough so people can trust it. So that's where most of the meaningful work is happening today.
But utilities are quite conservative by nature, and for good reason. So they're also known to be slow at adopting new technology. Do you think AI is changing that slightly?
Yes, absolutely. And understandably, utilities' main priority is to keep the lights on, make sure it's safe and reliable. And the shift we're seeing is actually the younger generation coming into the workforce who already have access to consumer technology, whether it's their cell phone, using the dating apps, or having access to tools like ChatGPT. So they are going back to the work and asking, why can't we bring AI to modernize our daily workflow, right? So this kind of expectation is pushing utilities to rethink how AI can augment and bring some of those capabilities as part of their daily workforce, not just for the sake of technology, but to make sure the workflow becomes much more effective, it's more efficient and less manual intensive. And on the flip side, what's also happening is our experts are retiring. So think of all the institutional knowledge our experts have accrued over the course of 14, 50 years, right? Here, AI becomes a real enabler in terms of tapping into that expertise, doing the knowledge transfer, and making it accessible and available for the younger generation. So it's really a win-win on both fronts.
So Milli, could you give me specific examples of how AI impacts these utility workers and end users?
Yes, I can definitely give you a few examples where AI is relevant depending upon where you are in the entire energy value chain. Let's take an example of an asset manager who's responsible for the overall operation and maintenance of a substation, which includes anywhere from your transformer, your switch gears, circuit breakers, right? So with the AI-powered predictive tools, the asset manager can get an early warning sign of a potential failure to an equipment that reduces a disruption, any downtime that is not anticipated. And the impact to the overall users is you have the lights on all the time. Another good example may be as you're driving home on your freeway, you look to the right and left, you'll see high voltage transmission towers. Traditionally, it's a huge production where the trained engineers go with the truck roll, they climb up the transmission tower and manually probe to see what are risks to failure conditions. Now, take that with the scenario where drones are being flown around the transmission towers, and these drones are capturing images from different angles, and these images are being processed through pre-trained machine learning models, which gives you, again, the risk to failure conditions. But here, you have avoided a lot of liability issues. You have improved the safety of your workers. And all of these can be done ahead of time. Once you know where are the risks to failure conditions, you can deploy work orders, and these field crews can then go in the field and have this sort of a guided mobile app in their tablet or in their smartphones and, fix those issues. So AI allows you to do a lot of these proactive pre-planning and scheduling. This in turn impacts an organization by having reduction in your O&M costs because you're deploying the right resources, you are making sure the right parts are available, and that makes everything much more safer, much more available, and the turnaround is much more quicker.
Have you got a couple of real-world AI case studies in your portfolio and any lessons learned that you could share?
Sure, I can give you 2 examples from our product portfolio, one on the asset work management for our existing product called APM. APM is asset performance management and is primarily used by our customers, utilities, to understand the asset health of the equipment, whether it's a transformer, switchgear, circuit breakers, and so on. But we also know that APM is inundated with lots of data. You have your operational data, you have your sensor data, we have a reliability models that is spinning out all sorts of asset health risk scores, right? So for our APM users, sometimes trying to get to the critical information required for decision making takes a lot longer. You will actually have to go through multiple screens, you have to create dashboards, you have to extract data, and then correlate using Power BI and all that good stuff. So we wanted to use GenAI capabilities to help get to those information faster. And in this case, we are partnering with a startup based in Silicon Valley called Bolo AI.
Right.
With Bolo AI, what we're doing is we are using ChatGPT 4.0 and providing a semantic layer on top so that it understands the APM data better. It understands what does the asset health score really mean. The value to a user is you don't really need to know what is in APM. You don't have to go create different tables and joins to get to the data. You can ask a simple question like, what are some of the top 5 critical transformers showing highest risk scores? Right. And the probability of failure is above 80%. For something like that, it just takes less than 2 seconds to get to the data point. That can be the start of the conversation. You can continue to ask the model, and the model will continue digging deeper and get you to an output. We also work with a customer called Emron, and some of the questions that Emron engineers are asking are, show me the report of SF6 gas. And this takes anywhere from 8 to 10 hours per month for a trained expert Emron engineer to produce this report. Right. Again, because you are doing a lot of data dump, doing pivot tables in Excel, and then circulating amongst your leadership. Another good use case that Emron brought up was really on the acetylene spike detection, which is an early sign of transformer failure. So these are all the real world questions APM users want to be able to ask without really understanding and without spending a lot of time digging through the information within the APM.
Well, that's great. And why are partnerships with startups so particularly important?
That's a really great question. And I think partners, especially the startups, bring that agility and focus and scale. We know what the customer's pain points are. We know we are expert when it comes to operational technology, but there are highly specialized startups like the ones we partnered with, in this case, a startup called Articulate. And that is really working with one of our greatest challenges in the network control product portfolio in terms of automating the single line diagram generation process. Today, our network control team, when they have to do upgrade or new system installations, it can take anywhere from 100 plus hours to look at all of the schematic, all of the PDF, the SLD could be in JPEG format, it could be created over different eras. And what Articulate really helped us is really automate the process for us in terms of extracting, doing the data mapping with the underlying network topology. And the added benefit is where domain-specific large language model comes into play. We're able to now ask specific questions based on the output of the new single line diagram that is being produced, right? And this is also not just touching on the partnership with Articulate, but it also goes back to what I mentioned earlier as part of the Open Power AI Consortium. One of the objectives of the Open Power AI Consortium is creating this domain-specific model, which is very different from the general purpose large language models, because these models are trained on energy and power and utilities. So you have higher level of accuracy and it's much more context aware.
Milli, the Southwest Power Pool Hitachi Energy announcement highlighted bottlenecks like interconnection queues, slow transmission build-outs. How are you addressing these challenges with AI?
On my earlier response, talking about partnership with Southwest Power Pool's challenge of the interconnection queue study, taking about anywhere from 18 to 24 months, the challenge before is huge. Not just one company can address it alone, right? That's why we are partnering with NVIDIA, which is a great data science company. We're partnering with SPP, who's a customer in the journey, and not just Hitachi Energy, but other sister organizations like Hitachi America, Hitachi Digital, Hitachi Vantara. And we are looking at this problem very holistically. We're looking at how we can solve the problem, not just by adding one AI capability, but taking a very holistic approach, starting with NVIDIA GPU computing, having Hitachi America, HAL R&D's AI surrogate models, and we are enhancing our existing ProMod to really perform the simulation, which used to take, 40 hours, maybe cut down that by 4 hours. So there's a different tiered and level of optimizations and AI embedded into these solutioning to give that holistic outcome to the customers, which we hope to cut down this queue challenge by about 80%. We're still in the works, and maybe in a couple of months, we can come back with that outcome.
So Milli, looking ahead, let's say 3 to 5 years, where do you see AI taking utilities?
In the next 3 to 5 years, you will see a lot of AI deployed in the control room operations.
Right.
Today, a lot of the decision making is done by an operator who's looking at a lot of historical data. But with AI, you will have AI agents. You will have more real-time data coming in. AI will be able to pivot according to anticipated disruptions in real time. So the scenario would be most likely the AI agents running around, making some of these operational decisions, but human will still be part of the process. The human operator's role will be elevated to more of a supervisory role to ensure that all of these AI agents are making the right decisions, critical decisions in a safe manner. So in essence, you'll see a grid that is much more autonomous and self-healing, so it continue to provide reliable and sustainable energy for all.
My last question to you, what is the one thing that you wish your customers or your teams were asking you about, or asking in general about AI?
Maybe I can take that question a little bit differently. Yes, a lot of customers and my peers are asking, how can we use AI? I think the question should be, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? I think, to me, AI is a means to an end. AI is an enabler to an outcome. So we should be focusing on what the problem is, getting down to that before jumping into the solution. And of course, AI and technology can solve any problem, but we want to make sure that we are defining the problem and we're also defining what the outcome should look like. And AI can help us get there.
It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much for making the time to come in today.
Thanks for having me.